If you're a 90s kid and a Halloween nut like I am, you've probably seen Disney's Hocus Pocus an unhealthy amount of times. As a kid, I rented this from the movie store dozens of times, and now it's become a DVR staple for myself and my daughter Sophia. For the past 23 years, something has grown even more obvious every time I see this film. There's more going on behind the scenes that we don't get to see, and I have a feeling that our Allison isn't quite as innocent as she's portrayed to be in the film. Mary, Sarah, and Winifred Sanderson are hanged for the death of Emily Binks and the disappearance of her brother Thackeray in 1693. They curse the town of Salem and return from the dead 300 years later on Halloween night to suck the life force from all the little kiddos in town. It's all up to jaded California boy Max, his iron-willed sister Danny, and resident witch expert Allison, along with Thackeray, who's been turned into a cat, to save the town from certain doom. It's very 90s for sure, but it's a fun story to help set the mood every Halloween season. Sure, it's the classic boy does something stupid to impress the girl story, but I always had a feeling like there was something else going on in the shadows that we weren't seeing, and it was actually Sophia who helped me discover it. Bette Midler has a throwaway line after Allison sprinkles salt all around the room.
What a clever little white witch.
I thought little of it until a few months ago when my daughter and I were playing and she said, "Daddy, let's play witches. I'll be a good one like Allison." And the more I tried to explain to her why she wasn't really a witch, the more it started to sink in and make sense. That's what had been bothering me for so long. Now I understand what you're saying. Dude, she lives in witch capital USA. I understand and I get that. And she also does say in the movie, "I'm really into witches."
I'm really into witches.
See, I admit, that does sound like a reasonable explanation for all this, but what's a classic Disney movie without a little bit of controversy, right? So Allison's the first one to speak up when Max poops on the witch parade. She's then seen wearing a hooded cloak, sort of resembling a witch. In fact, Max seems bewitched by her from the start, and even Dad's taken by her. She goes on to identify Mary Sanderson without even hearing the other sisters identify each other. Though it's Max who is presented throughout the whole movie as the hero and Binks is their guide, Allison's often leading them throughout the film. She plays hard to get, she leads them to the house, she tells Max about the black flame candle and then refuses to light it, ensuring Max was going to do it to impress her anyway. She takes possession of Winnie's spellbook and she's always trying to look through it. She's down with hiding in a graveyard on Halloween night. She physically protects Max and Danny several times. And Allison's the one who has the idea to barbecue the witches, and she's also the one who figures out that their spell only keeps them alive until dawn, when the black flame candle's wax is completely gone. Call me a macabre Dr. Seuss. When Winnie calls out to her spellbook and it awakens, Allison wakes right away as well. And lastly, and most importantly, Allison leads the witches straight to the town hall party where all of the parents in Salem are partying that night. They cast a spell on the parents and they ensure that it's only Danny, Allison, and Max versus the witches, with none of the parents in town getting in the way. This is an important part of the film and of this theory. Who's more likely to believe their story? Max's parents, who just moved to town from California and who don't know as much about Salem as, let's say, Allison's parents? Yeah, maybe they would be the ones who ran the museum and know all about Salem's history. Why did they never go and see them? Because it was an orchestrated plot carried out perfectly by Allison and her family. She's Gandalf the Gorgeous. She's a doe-eyed Danny Ocean. She's a menstrual Mr. Miyagi. She's Morpheus with memories. She's Baby Wan Kenobi. She is the one leading them throughout this film. While we may not have all the pieces to the puzzle, we can put a picture together that I think would look something like this. Allison's family isn't just a part of Salem's upper crust. They're descendants of some of Salem's earliest aristocracy.
Rich people.
After the witches were hanged, the town set out to ensure two things. One, a tragedy like the death of Emily Binks and the disappearance of her brother Thackeray would never happen again. And two, when the witches did return, someone would be there to send them packing for good. So the town turned to a family in Salem's ruling class, but it couldn't be just any family. It had to be a family they could trust, and it had to be a family with a history of magic and an understanding of the supernatural. Allison's family. They then took possession of the house and eventually turned it into a historical museum as a cover. The family kept watch for 300 years, holding ritual ceremonies each Halloween night, waiting for the perfect time and the perfect virgin. After inheriting this responsibility from her mother, Allison was anxious to end the centuries-long suspense. Now, here comes Max Dennison moving into town just in time for Halloween. He's jaded, he's looking to fit in, and he's the only virgin in town who doesn't know who Allison is or what her family's up to.
Look, I'll get it tattooed on my forehead, okay?
So she uses his crush as leverage, turns on the charm, possibly slips him something, and leads Max and Danny right to the devil's doorstep. She helps him overcome the witches and relieves Salem, herself, and Thackeray Binks from a 300-year burden that they've all been carrying. And they all live happily ever after. That is until right before the wedding when Max's family figures out it was all a ruse. Who am I kidding? It's Disney. They all live happily ever after. But it could have turned out a lot worse for Max and Danny and all the kids in Salem if Max and Allison had failed in vanquishing the witches. Now, I know it's not perfect, but it does make sense on so many different levels. Make sure to leave your comments and your own theories in the comments section below. My name is Brian J. Happy Halloween.